Hey, look, it's me. Yeah, this is a Halloween costume from about 16 years ago. I don't know if you can guess what the costume was. I have a hat, a whistle, a really terrible shirt, and a clipboard that you can't see. I was a creepy camp counselor, and it was indeed creepy. It's also a bad joke that I thought was funny at the time. Would I do it again? Probably not. Well, it's that time of year again, so strap in for a long post. And no, I'm not talking about Christmas. I'm talking about the approximately once a year event where I have to do another post about things that I've talked about over and over again. But there's a bunch of disingenuous people out there who would prefer to quote me out of context or not give you all the facts or not talk to me about it at all or not even do their research and watch the playlist that I have on my profile and attack me. And these people I can only assume are perfect, and they have never done or said or exhibited any behavior whatsoever in their past in any time, even when they were younger at all, that is would all be problematic or bad or anything to be ashamed of. They've only ever acted in a way that they would consider to be moral and upstanding, and they are just flawless human beings. And so, which I respect that. I wish I could be like that, but I'm not. So this is that time when I'm going to talk about this. But this time I'm taking a 10-minute video to go over it. And if this 10 minutes isn't enough, well, tough shit. Let's get in nice and close, since this is an intimate video about very personal aspects of my life that everybody wants to talk about publicly. I wasn't a good person. Did a lot of shitty things that I was ashamed of. I wasn't ashamed of at the time, but I was later. And that later was 2017, when the Me Too movement started. And I was reading about all these things that men had done and being accused of, and realized I had done a lot of things that I wasn't proud of as well. And it started to make me think that maybe I wasn't the person that I thought I was, that maybe I wasn't the ally that I thought I was to my women friends, and that maybe I wasn't a good person in a lot of ways. That maybe I had a lot of unpacked and unprocessed misogyny and toxic masculinity and other aspects that I needed to work on. So I wrote a blog post about it, holding myself accountable. Yeah, that blog post that's going out was written by me. And nobody ever seems to understand that I was telling on myself publicly to hold myself accountable because I wanted to be better and I wanted to do better. So I wrote a list of all of the things that I had done in the past that I could remember without any context. I didn't say that I was only 11 when I peeked in someone's window, or that I apologized to someone immediately after doing something and they forgave me. I talked about having an affair, about using my power to influence others, about being manipulative, about sending unsolicited pictures, about doing things that made me not someone who I liked. And I wrote about it in a public sense to hold myself accountable. My post, as you can imagine, got a little bit of pushback from people, and it made me realize that I had a lot of work to do. Not that I didn't already realize that, but it made me really realize it. So I decided to take down my entire blog and get offline for a little while and start working on myself. And that included therapy, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of reading, and a lot of listening, not just to my women friends, but to other women around the world who had written about things like this. I started to really understand the systemic nature of misogyny and how it was ingrained in all of us, women included, but really in men. And I started to understand how toxic masculinity had been a major part of my life. And I started to understand how being a quote-unquote white knight and leaping to the rescue of women when they don't ask for it is just as bad as being the guy who's attacking women in the first place. Because women they're not the princess in the castle that needs you to rescue them. I stepped away from society for a little while and realized that as a creative person and as someone whose sometimes sole interaction with the world is the internet, that I needed some type of outlet for my creativity. And I found Sarah, who was my co-host for the podcast Dating Kinda Sucks. We hit it off pretty immediately, and when I just decided to start a podcast, and I thought this would be a great place for me to talk about the issues of men and women and dating and relationships, etc., while I still learned. So we started that in early 2018. This was about maybe 5 months after I had closed myself off from the entire world. In the meantime, I continued to learn and grow and develop as a human being and become somebody who I actually like looking at in the mirror, and that process continues to this day. It is not a process that's going to stop. I'm always in listening and learning mode. I will never be able to say that I know more than the marginalized, oppressed groups who have actually experienced the subtle and explicit type of attacks that they do. Even on the podcast, as we've started it, we've kept our episodes public, except for the first few episodes because my co-host hates how the audio sounds and she's very much an audio snob. But beyond that, we've kept them all public, even though we both said things on episodes in earlier years that we wouldn't say now. Because as mature adults do, we've grown and changed from that point. So there are things that I've done and said on the earlier episodes of the podcast that I wouldn't do again, and that if I were to go back, I wouldn't do it at that point either because I would know better now. The very premise of our podcast was that we were two garbage human beings who were just trying to make the world a little bit better by bringing light to all the garbage behaviors that garbage people have. And a couple of years after starting the podcast, I found myself on TikTok, which instead of being the one-way street that a podcast is, which is just me broadcasting to the world, it was a two-way street where I was able to learn more. I was able to follow some incredible creators and really learn about things that I had never even considered or thought of. And it's actually shaped and affected the structure of the podcast and the path that it's taken drastically. You can even tell by some of the episode titles over the last, I would say, like 3 years, how different they are from the first 3 years. And this is because I was learning more and saying, oh, these are things I want to talk about. Like, I want to take this thing that someone said and let's make this more public. Let's bring this to an audience that might not be on TikTok. Because I was learning and I wanted to share that knowledge and that growth with the world. And that brings us to today. Am I finally someone who likes what he sees when he looks at himself in the mirror? Yes. Does this mean I'm done growing or learning? Of course not. Does it mean that I'm not going to make mistakes? Of course not. I am still a work in progress, and I will continue to be a work in progress. And I'll continue to listen to people who respond constructively or post things that I think are new learning experiences. I'm going to learn from you. I will continue to do so, and I'll continue to put the message out there that your past behavior is important, but it's what you do since that really matters. Who I am today is an ally and an advocate for marginalized and oppressed groups. I'm a feminist. I'm a supporter of trans rights, the rights of people of color and women of color especially. I'm someone who doesn't punch down, but punches up. And I'm this way because I like being this way, because I actually enjoy seeing myself in the mirror now. It's been a huge relief to have this growth. And I'm hoping that my path and my transparency about it, my accountability, and the content that I've made can demonstrate my genuine nature in what I'm making. But if you don't think so, if you don't believe me, then please don't follow me. I don't want to trick you into anything. And to those of you out there who are perfect, who are flawless and always have been, who've had nary an errant word ever leave your mouth or your fingers or your phone, who've never said or done a single thing in your lives that you regret, that you are ashamed of, that you feel bad about. To those of you who are absolutely flawless, and so you know how your glass house is strong, I say you're amazing. And I wish I could be like you, but I'm not. I'm a human being. I'm flawed. And I'm trying to do better. So fucking deal with it. And this is Bacon.